The church bells tolled like a death knell, each chime slicing through my chest as I stood at the altar, waiting for James. My heart thundered, not with joy but with dread, because I knew deep in my bones that he wasn't coming. Napa Valley's golden hills, usually a haven of warmth, felt like a trap closing around me. I'd met James Hartley 2 years ago at a wine festival, his easy smile and hazel eyes catching me off guard under the twinkle lights strung across the vineyard. We were both 28, both dreamers, both white guys from small towns who'd found solace in San Francisco's vibrant chaos. He was a painter, I was a writer, and together we built a world where love felt like the only truth. That night, as we danced barefoot on the grass, he whispered, "You're my forever, Ethan." I believed him. I still did, even as the congregation's whispers grew louder behind me, their pity stinging worse than their judgment. The priest cleared his throat, glancing at the empty aisle. My suit felt too tight, the air too thin. James had vanished. No note, no call, just a void where my future was supposed to be. Then, from the back of the church, a figure stepped forward, tall, broad-shouldered, with James's face. My breath caught. But it wasn't him. It was Lucas, his identical twin, the brother I'd met only once, whose cold demeanor had chilled me even then. He strode toward the altar, his expression unreadable, and the murmurs in the pews turned to gasps. "Ethan," Lucas said, his voice eerily like James's, but sharper. "We need to talk." I froze, my mind spiraling. The Hartley family, old money and older secrets, had orchestrated this wedding like a business deal. James had laughed it off, saying their expectations couldn't touch us. But now, with Lucas standing before me, I saw the truth. They'd never let us go. "He's gone," Lucas continued, his eyes locking onto mine. "James left last night. No one knows where. But the family, they expect this wedding to happen." "What are you saying?" My voice cracked, barely audible. "I'm saying," he paused, glancing at the priest, "you're marrying me instead." The room spun. Marry Lucas, the man who'd barely spoken to me, who carried none of James's warmth. I wanted to run, to scream, to find James and drag him back to this altar. But the Hartley family's influence loomed like the vineyards outside, vast, unyielding, and impossible to escape. Their wealth funded half of Napa's economy, and their name was law. Refusing meant losing everything: my home, my career, my place in this world I'd fought so hard to build. "Why you?" I whispered, my hands trembling. Lucas's jaw tightened. "Because they need this alliance. Because I owe them. And because I'm the only one left." The priest coughed, urging us to proceed. The congregation watched, hungry for drama. I thought of James's laugh, his touch, the way he'd promised me forever. Was he safe? Had he run from me? Or from them? I didn't know. All I knew was the man before me, a mirror of my love, but not him, waiting for my answer. "I can't," I said, my voice breaking. "You don't have a choice," Lucas replied, softer now, almost pleading. "Neither do I." The ceremony was a blur. Vows I didn't mean slipped from my lips, each word a betrayal of the man I loved. Lucas's hand was steady as he slid the ring onto my finger, but his eyes held a storm I couldn't read. The congregation clapped, their smiles forced, as if they too sensed the wrongness of it all. Outside, Napa's hills glowed under the midday sun, mocking me with their beauty. We didn't speak as we drove to the Hartley estate, a sprawling mansion nestled among the vines. The reception was a spectacle: champagne fountains, string quartets, guests in tailored suits and glittering dresses. I played my part, smiling for photos, shaking hands, all while my heart screamed for James. Lucas stayed close, his presence both a comfort and a cage. He wasn't cruel, but he wasn't James. Every glance at his face was a knife twist, a reminder of what I'd lost. That night, Alone in the guest suite, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the ring on my finger. Lucas had insisted on separate rooms. A small mercy. My phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. My pulse raced as I opened it. Ethan, I'm sorry. I had to leave. Don't trust them. It was James. Alive. My hands shook as I typed a reply. But the message bounced back, number disconnected. I clutched the phone, tears burning my eyes. He was out there. Somewhere. And I was trapped here, bound to his brother by a vow I didn't choose. The door creaked open. Lucas stood there, still in his tux, his expression softer than I'd ever seen. You got his message, he said. Not a question. I stared, stunned. You knew? He nodded, stepping inside. I saw the text come through. Ethan, I didn't want this either. But the family, they're dangerous. James ran because he had to. And I'm here because I can't. What do they have on you? I asked, my voice raw. Lucas hesitated, his gaze dropping to the floor. Debts. Promises. Things I can't undo. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine. But I swear, I'll protect you. Even from them. I didn't know if I could trust him. I didn't know if I could trust anyone. But in that moment, something shifted, a spark of understanding. Fragile but real. Lucas wasn't my enemy. He was as trapped as I was. The next morning, I woke to the scent of coffee and the sound of birds outside the estate's windows. Lucas was already up, sitting at the breakfast table, reading a newspaper. He looked so much like James it hurt. But his posture was stiffer, his movements precise. We need to talk about what happens next, he said, folding the paper. Next? I asked, pouring coffee to steady my nerves. I'm supposed to jest, live like this. Pretend you're him. No one's asking you to pretend, he said, his voice low. But we have to play their game. For now. Their game. The Hartleys had plans, business deals, political connections, all tied to this marriage. I was a pawn, and so was Lucas. But James's text burned in my mind. Don't trust them. Did that include Lucas? I studied him, searching for a lie, but found only exhaustion in his eyes. I want to find him, I said, my voice firm. I need to know why he left. Lucas's expression darkened. You can't. Not yet. They're watching us. If you go looking, they'll know. Who's they? I pressed. Your parents. The family. He leaned forward, his voice barely a whisper. It's bigger than that. People with power. People who don't like loose ends. A chill ran through me. This wasn't just about a runaway groom. James had stumbled into something dangerous, and now we were caught in it. I thought of the life we'd planned, quiet evenings, shared dreams, a future built on love. Could I find that with Lucas? Did I even want to try? I'll help you, Lucas said, breaking the silence. But we have to be careful. Trust me, Ethan. Just a little. I didn't answer. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. But as I looked at Lucas, I saw something, a flicker of vulnerability. A man carrying his own scars. Maybe, just maybe, we could navigate this together. For James. For us. The days blurred into a haze of forced smiles and whispered secrets. The Hartley estate was a gilded cage, its opulent halls lined with portraits of stern-faced ancestors who seemed to judge my every move. Lucas and I played the part of newlyweds for the world, attending brunches, posing for photos, enduring the endless congratulations of Napa's elite. But behind closed doors, we were strangers, bound by a shared lie and a desperate need to find James. Each night, I lay awake, replaying James's text. Don't trust them. The words haunted me, a puzzle I couldn't solve. I tried tracing the number, but it led nowhere. A burner phone, Lucas said, unsurprising but frustrating. He'd promised to help, but his caution bordered on paranoia. We're being watched, he'd say. glancing at the windows as if expecting eyes in the shadows. I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. Was he protecting me, or keeping me in line? One morning, as the fog rolled over the vineyards, I found Lucas in the library, poring over a stack of old ledgers. His brow was furrowed, his tie loosening a rare crack in his polished facade. "What are you doing?" I asked, closing the door behind me. He didn't look up. "Looking for answers. The family's business isn't just wine. There's money moving too much. Too fast." I frowned, stepping closer. "What does that have to do with James?" "Everything," he said, his voice tight. He was digging into it, asking questions he shouldn't have. That's why he ran. My heart sank. James had always been curious, too curious for his own good. I remembered him joking about the Hartley Empire, calling it a house of cards. I'd thought he was being dramatic. Now, I wasn't so sure. "What did he find?" I asked. Lucas closed the ledger, his eyes meeting mine. "I don't know yet. But it's dangerous. And it's why we can't just leave." I wanted to scream, to demand answers. But his expression stopped me. There was fear there, buried deep, and it mirrored my own. "Show me," I said instead. He hesitated, then slid a ledger across the table. Pages of numbers, coded transactions, names I didn't recognize. "These aren't just wine sales," he said. "There's offshore accounts, shell companies." James found something that scared him. I stared at the pages, my mind racing. Why didn't he tell me? Lucas's voice softened. "He was trying to protect you." The words stung. James had always been my shield, my confidant. The idea that he'd kept this from me hurt more than his absence. I looked at Lucas, his face so like James's yet so different. "And you?" I asked. "Why are you telling me now?" "Because you deserve to know," he said, "and because I'm tired of lying." That night, we made a plan. Lucas had contacts, people outside the family's reach who could help us dig deeper. But it meant risking everything: our safety, our freedom, the fragile truce we'd built. I didn't trust Lucas completely, but I needed him. And maybe, in some twisted way, he needed me too. We started small, sneaking into the estate's office after midnight, rifling through files while the house slept. The air was thick with tension, our breaths shallow as we scanned documents by flashlight. Lucas's hands moved with precision, but I noticed them tremble when we found a folder labeled Napa Ventures. Inside were contracts, emails, names tied to political figures and shadowy organizations. My stomach churned. This was bigger than us, bigger than James. "Ethan," Lucas whispered, pointing to a name. "Look." It was James's signature, scrawled on a document dated a week before the wedding. A transfer of funds, millions, to an account I didn't recognize. "What is this?" I asked, my voice shaking. Lucas's face paled. He was in deeper than I thought. Before I could respond, a floorboard creaked outside. We froze, the flashlight beam darting to the door. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoed in the hall. Lucas grabbed my arm, pulling me behind a cabinet. My heart pounded as the door opened, revealing a figure in the shadows. It was Margaret, the Hartley matriarch, her eyes sharp even in the dark. "Lucas," she said, her voice like ice. "What are you doing?" He stepped forward, shielding me. "Just looking for some old records, Mother." Her gaze flicked to me, and I felt exposed, like she could see every secret I carried. "Be careful, darling," she said, her tone laced with warning. "Curiosity is a dangerous thing." She left without another word, but the air felt heavier, the walls closing in. Lucas turned to me, his expression grim. "We need to move faster," he said, "before they figure out what we're doing." The next day, I found a note slipped under my door. No signature, Just a scrawled address in San Francisco and the words, "Meet me. Midnight." My pulse raced. Was it James? I showed it to Lucas, expecting him to dismiss it. But he studied it with a frown. "It's a trap," he said. "Or it's him. Either way, we have to go." We drove in silence. The city lights a stark contrast to Napa's quiet hills. The address led to a rundown bar in the Mission District, its neon sign flickering. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and regret. A man sat in the corner, his face hidden under a hood. My heart leapt James. But as we approached, he looked up, revealing a stranger's face. "You're Ethan," he said, his voice low. "James sent me." I gripped the table, my knees weak. "Where is he?" "Safe. For now," the man said. "But he's in trouble. He needs you to stop digging. It's not safe." Lucas leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Who's after him?" The man's eyes darted to the door. "People who don't like questions. Back off, or you're both dead." Before we could press him further, he slipped out, vanishing into the crowd. I turned to Lucas, my mind reeling. "What do we do?" He didn't answer right away, his gaze fixed on the empty seat. "We keep going," he said finally. "For James." But as we left the bar, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a trap. Lucas's hand brushed mine, a fleeting touch that felt both foreign and familiar. I pulled away, guilt twisting in my chest. James was out there, fighting for his life. And I was here, bound to his brother, caught in a web of lies and danger. But Lucas's determination, his willingness to risk everything, stirred something in me. Maybe he wasn't just a stand-in. Maybe he was an ally, or something more. The drive back to Napa was a silent battle, my mind torn between James's absence and Lucas's presence. The stranger's warning echoed in my head, "Back off, or you're both dead." But backing off meant abandoning James, and I couldn't do that. Lucas's jaw was set, his hands tight on the wheel, and I wondered what he was risking by helping me. His life, his family, something deeper. Back at the estate, we moved like ghosts, avoiding Margaret's watchful eyes. Lucas had a plan: reach out to his old college friend, a hacker named Claire, who could trace the accounts we'd found. But contacting her meant breaking the family's rules, risking their wrath. "Are you sure about this?" I asked, watching him type a coded message on a burner phone. "No," he admitted, his voice raw. "But I'm sure about you." The words hit me like a punch. I looked away, my heart a tangle of guilt and confusion. Lucas wasn't James, but his quiet strength, his willingness to fight for me, was starting to blur the lines. I pushed the thought aside. This wasn't about us. It was about finding James. Claire responded within hours, agreeing to meet us at a vineyard on the outskirts of Napa. The place was abandoned, its rows of withered vines stretching into the darkness. She was waiting when we arrived, a wiry woman with sharp eyes and a laptop that looked like it could hack the Pentagon. "This is bigger than you think," she said, pulling up files on her screen. "The Hartleys are tied to a network, money laundering, political bribes, maybe worse." I stared at the screen, names and numbers swimming before my eyes. "And James, he stumbled onto it," she said. "He was trying to expose them. That's why he ran." My chest tightened. James, my James, had been fighting a war I didn't even know about. "Where is he now?" I asked. Claire shook her head. "I don't know. But these people, they don't let go. If they find him first." She didn't finish, but she didn't need to. Lucas's hand rested on my shoulder, steadying me. "We'll find him," he said. "I promise." Claire gave us a USB drive with encrypted files, a map to the Hartley secrets. Back at the estate, we pored over it, piecing together a trail that led to a shell company in Nevada. Lucas was relentless, his focus almost frightening. I saw glimpses of James in him, the same stubborn determination, but Lucas's edges were sharper, his pain more guarded. One night, as we worked late, I caught him staring at an old photo of him and James, their arms around each other, laughing. "You miss him?" I said softly. He nodded, his voice barely audible. "He was the better one. Always was." "Don't say that," I said, surprising myself. "You're doing this for him. For us." He looked at me, his eyes searching mine. For a moment, I thought he might say something more, but he just turned back to the files. The silence between us was heavy, charged with unspoken questions. Was I starting to care for him? Could I? When James was still out there. The next day, we got a break. Claire traced the Nevada account to a warehouse in Oakland. "It's a front," she said over a secure call. "If James is hiding, he might be there." We didn't hesitate. The drive to Oakland was tense. The city's industrial sprawl a stark contrast to Napa's beauty. The warehouse loomed ahead, its windows dark, its walls tagged with graffiti. Lucas handed me a flashlight, his expression grim. "Stay close," he said. Inside, the air was stale, the shadows thick. We moved carefully, checking corners, listening for any sound. Then, in the back, we found a makeshift camp, a sleeping bag, a half-eaten sandwich. My heart leapt. "James," I whispered, touching the sleeping bag. But before we could search further, headlights flashed through the windows. Tires screeched outside. Lucas grabbed my arm, pulling me behind a crate. "They found us," he hissed. Voices echoed, cold and commanding. "Check every inch. They're here." My pulse raced. Lucas's hand tightened on mine, his eyes fierce. "We get out of this," he whispered. "Together." We crouched in the dark, the footsteps closing in. I thought of James, of the life we'd planned, of the man beside me risking everything to save us. Fear and hope collided in my chest. We were so close to answers, but the danger was closer. The warehouse was a maze of shadows, each creak and whisper amplifying my fear. Lucas's hand was a lifeline, grounding me as the voices grew nearer. "Stay low," he breathed, his eyes scanning for an exit. The men outside weren't just hired muscle, they moved with purpose. Their words clipped and professional. Whoever the Hartleys were tangled with, they meant business. We slipped through a side door, emerging into an alley slick with rain. Lucas led the way, his movements swift but silent. My heart pounded, not just from fear, but from the realization that I trusted him, really trusted him. We ducked behind a dumpster as a flashlight beam swept past, the men's voices fading into the night. "We need to get back to Napa," Lucas said. "Regroup. Plan our next move." But I couldn't shake the image of that sleeping bag. James had been there. So close. "We can't just leave," I said, my voice shaking. "He's out there. Lucas. Alone." Lucas's expression softened, but his voice was firm. "If we stay, we're dead. And then we're no good to him." Reluctantly, I followed him back to the car. The drive was silent, the weight of our near miss pressing down on us. Back at the estate, we locked ourselves in the library, the USB drive our only lead. Claire's files revealed Moria network of payoffs. Coded messages. A name that kept appearing, Victor Crane. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice hoarse. Lucas's face darkened. "A fixer. The kind of man who makes problems disappear." If James crossed him. He didn't finish, but the implication hung heavy. I felt sick, my mind conjuring images of James hurt. Or worse. Lucas reached for my hand, his touch hesitant. "We'll find him. Ethan. I swear." I pulled away, guilt flooding me. Every moment with Lucas felt like a betrayal of James. Yet I couldn't deny the pull between us. It wasn't love not yet, but it was something real. Something that scared me. The next morning, Claire sent a new lead, a safe house in Sonoma. Tied to Crane. It's a long shot, she warned, but it's all we've got. We left at dawn, the vineyards blurring past as we drove. Lucas was quiet, his hands steady but his eyes distant. I wanted to ask what he was thinking, but the words wouldn't come. The safe house was a nondescript cabin, hidden among oak trees. We approached cautiously, but it was empty. No James. No Crane. Just a few papers scattered on a table. One caught my eye, a photo of James. Time-stamped 2 days ago. He looked tired, his eyes haunted, but alive. Relief flooded me, followed by dread. He's still out there, I said, clutching the photo. Lucas nodded, but his expression was grim. We're running out of time. That night, back at the estate, I couldn't sleep. I wandered the halls, ending up in Lucas's room. He was awake, sitting by the window, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Can't sleep either, he asked, his voice soft. I shook my head, sitting beside him. The moonlight cast shadows across his face, highlighting the differences between him and James, the sharper jaw, the deeper lines around his eyes. Why are you doing this? I asked, risking everything for me. He looked at me, his gaze steady. Because I know what it's like to lose him. And because I see why he loved you. The words hung between us, heavy with meaning. I wanted to pull away, to cling to James. But Lucas's honesty disarmed me. Before I could respond, he leaned in, his lips brushing mine. It was brief, tentative, but it sent a jolt through me. I pulled back, my heart racing. I can't, I whispered. I know, he said, his voice thick with regret. I'm sorry. But as I left his room, I couldn't shake the warmth of his touch, the way it lingered. I was falling for him, and it terrified me. The next day, Claire called with urgent news. Crane was meeting someone at a Napa hotel that night. It's our chance, she said. But it's dangerous. Be ready. We went, armed with nothing but desperation. The hotel was bustling, a charity gala masking darker dealings. Lucas spotted Crane, a tall, gray-haired man with cold eyes, slipping into a private room. We followed, blending into the crowd, our hearts pounding. Inside, Crane was alone, speaking into a phone. The runaway's still a problem, he said. Find him. Now. My blood ran cold. Lucas grabbed my arm, pulling me back before Crane saw us. We need to move, he whispered. But as we turned, a security guard blocked our path, his hand on a radio. You're not supposed to be here, he said, his eyes narrowing. Lucas stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. We're guests. Got lost. The guard hesitated, then waved us off. We slipped away, my pulse still racing. Outside, Lucas pulled me into the shadows. That was too close, he said. But we know Crane's looking for James. We're on the right track. I nodded, but fear gripped me. James was alive. But for how long? And Lucas, could I trust this man who was starting to mean more to me than I wanted to admit? The lines between love, loyalty, and survival were blurring, and I didn't know how to navigate them. The gala's lights faded behind us as we drove back to the estate, the weight of Crane's words pressing down on me. James was a problem to be solved, and every second we wasted brought him closer to danger. Lucas's hands gripped the wheel, his silence louder than any words. I wanted to reach for him, to bridge the gap between us, but guilt held me back. James was my heart, but Lucas was becoming my strength. Back in the library, we spread out Claire's files, searching for anything we'd missed. A name jumped out, a vineyard owned by Crane, hidden in Napa's outskirts. That's where he'll be, I said, my voice steady with certainty. James. Lucas nodded, but his eyes were wary. It's a trap. Ethan. Crane wants us to come. I don't care, I said. I'm done waiting. He studied me, then sighed. Okay, but we do this my way. Careful. We left at midnight, the vineyard's gates looming like a warning. The air was thick with the scent of grapes and earth, the stars bright above. We moved silently, flashlights off, guided by moonlight. The main house was dark, but a faint glow came from a barn in the distance. My heart raced. James. Inside, we found him. James, bound to a chair, his face bruised but alive. My knees buckled, relief and rage crashing through me. I rushed to him, cutting the ropes with a knife Lucas handed me. Ethan, James whispered, his voice weak. You shouldn't be here. I had to, I said, tears burning my eyes. I love you. He smiled, faint but real. I know. I'm sorry. Before we could say more, footsteps echoed outside. Lucas pulled us behind a stack of barrels, his gun drawn, a gun I hadn't known he carried. Crane's voice cut through the silence. They're here. Find them. The next moments were chaos. Lucas fired a warning shot, scattering Crane's men. We ran, James leaning on me, his strength fading. Lucas led the way, his movements precise, deadly. We made it to the car, tires screeching as we sped away. James slumped in the back seat, his breathing shallow. Stay with me, I begged, clutching his hand. At a safe house Claire had arranged, we tended to James's wounds. He told us everything, how he'd uncovered Crane's network, how he'd run to protect me, how the Hartleys had betrayed him. I didn't want to leave you, he said, his eyes locked on mine. But I had to. I held him, my heart breaking and healing all at once. But as I looked at Lucas, standing quietly in the corner, I felt a different kind of ache. He'd risked everything for us, and I couldn't ignore what that meant. The next day, we planned our escape. Claire had evidence to expose Crane and the Hartleys, but it meant going public, risking their wrath. James was weak but determined, his hand never leaving mine. Lucas was quieter, his eyes avoiding mine. I knew why. He'd kissed me, and I'd felt something. Now, with James back, that moment hung between us like a ghost. We need to move, Lucas said, breaking the silence. Crane's men are still out there. We fled to San Francisco, hiding in a friend's apartment. Claire worked her magic, leaking the files to the press. Within hours, the story broke. Hartley corruption, Crane's crimes, all laid bare. The family's empire began to crumble, but so did our safety. Crane's men were relentless, and we lived in fear, moving from safe house to safe house. One night, as James slept, Lucas and I sat on the balcony, the city sprawling below. You love him, Lucas said, his voice quiet. I see it. I do, I said, my throat tight. But you saved us. He smiled, sad but genuine. I did it for him. And for you. I reached for his hand, my heart torn. What happens now? He squeezed my hand, then let go. You and James get your life back. I'll deal with the fallout. Months later, James and I were free, living quietly in Oregon. The Hartleys were ruined, Crane in prison, but Lucas stayed in Napa, rebuilding what he could. He wrote to me once, a short letter, "Be happy, Ethan. You deserve it." I kept that letter, a reminder of the man who'd changed everything. James and I were together, our love stronger for what we'd endured. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, I thought of Lucas's sacrifice, his strength, his unspoken love. He'd given us our future, and in doing so, he'd carved out a piece of my heart. We'd survived, but the cost was high. Love, I learned, wasn't just about holding on. It was about letting go, about trusting, about finding meaning in the spaces between. And in those spaces, I carried both James and Lucas, forever bound by the valley where our story began.